want to say, as a producer of this documentary, thank you, Mr. Talley, for being an inspiration to me in the area of wanting me to do this documentary. Listen to the stories that you tell. It inspired me to want to dive into those stories and tell them more in detail. So I want to thank you for that. I want to give a special thanks to the Honorable Jerome Rice, Mayor of the City of Spartanburg. You dedicated your time. We had lunch with you. We enjoyed breaking bread with you. You're very generous with your time. What you do at Spartanburg High School, what you do in the city. I want to say thank you also. I want to thank all 22 participants that helped us put this together. We wouldn't have been able to do it without all your help. Y'all sacrificed your time, and we just want to appreciate you right now for what you've done. I say again, it wouldn't have been what it was without your stories, your experiences, and you opening up some of your emotions, some of your mental thoughts. I really appreciate you, and I want to say thank you. I also want to thank the public library in Spartanburg. That downtown library is something to be admired. All the time that you all allowed us to be in the archives, going to look at pictures, making copies, dedicating your time, Charity, April. It's like they're a team, and I love the dedication y'all show. And all the people that let us come into their homes, all the people that fed us, all the people that donated for the project. I want to make sure that we thank you, and thank you, thank you, and thank you. Last but not least, I want to make sure I give props to my wife, your hometown girl, Cynthia Reed Wills. She dedicated so much time to this project. She dedicated hours of editing and looking for pictures and making phone calls, and it's like it was a labor of love. I told her we didn't bite off more than we can chew, but we did bite off a lot. But she accepted the challenge. I want to make sure that I give her props. Being married to the one person for 34 years, I want to say she's been by my side all the way. Without her help on this project, it wouldn't have been what it was. So Cynthia Reed Wills, your hometown girl, in 2015, your hometown girl brought you content of character. In 2022, she brought you It's Only a Test, the story of Job. She did it again. She brought you another story.
Yo.
You know, I heard someone say that there's a big difference between a neighborhood and a community. In a neighborhood, you may know some people, you may not. But in a community, everyone knew everybody. You knew where they lived. You knew their parents. And I want to say there were some great communities in the city of Spartanburg. We talking about the South Side and back of the college. And then we're talking about East Spartanburg. And not only that, but about the lines, the Draper lines, et cetera, you know. And then Highland, boy. And not only that, we got to move on over to Arkwright. That's where my wife was raised, in Arkwright. Let's hear a little bit about those communities.
I'm James Talley. I was born during the Great Depression in the year 1940. Mother was Lula. They call her Lula, but the name is Lillian Rice Talley. My father was Charles. They called him Date Talley. Date was a nickname. I was raised by my grandmother, Spicy Rice, who thought the world of me and the rest of the children, but I thought it was all about me. And she thought the world of people around her neighborhood. I grew up in a neighborhood where the neighbors helped each other. They looked for each other and they gave opportunities for everybody to be helped.
My name is John C. Abercrombie, and I was born in Spartanburg, South Carolina, at the Spartanburg General Colored Hospital in 1944. I was raised on what is commonly called the south side of the city. It is sometimes referred to as the Baptist side because of the large Baptist churches that were on this side.
I am Beatrice Hill, and I was born September 20th, 1943, and we lived on the south side of town, in Topolo Projects. It was during World War II. It was in the housing project that was built early 1940s, and it was mainly built for the black soldiers at Camp Croft. But anyway, our neighborhood was like a big family. All the older people and the young people look after the kids, and you couldn't go from one side of the apartments to another without somebody knowing who you were.
I'm Phyllis Williams, and I was born in Rock Hill, South Carolina in 1944. My grandfather came to Spartanburg, and we lived out in East Spartanburg behind what's called the Draper on Pine Street. And he really was a sharecropper. He had a small farm, and he raised hogs and for harvest, and he sold to people in town. My grandfather was also one of the first people to work for Wade's Restaurant, because Wade's started in a little shop on Pine Street. And he started as a luncheonette, feeding the people who worked at the Draper. We stayed in East Spartanburg until around the 1950s when he built a house in Arkwright.
I am Margaret Ruth Jones Swindler. I was born December 9th, 1949, to the parents of Elder Daniel Jones and Ruth F. Jones. There were 4 children. I'm the oldest of the 4. Mary Elizabeth Jones is 2nd, Daniel Monroe Jones is 3rd, Dale Paulette Jones Griffin is the youngest. We lived at 407 Calder Avenue, which is the south side of town.
I'm Ruth McDacker, and I was born on the west side of Spartanburg in the Hamburg community in December of 1943. The family that lived next door to me at the time was a white family. And they had a daughter that was my age. And so she had her white dolls and I had my black dolls. And she would come on the front porch, I would be out and she would come out and she would signal. We had a signal, go to the back, because we weren't allowed to play on the front. And there was a fence that separated our houses, and we would be out there for hours. Sometimes Mama had to call us in, but it was getting late in the afternoon. But even though we were in a segregated situation. We had friends that we played together.
Hello, my name is James R. Johnson. Most people call me Rick Johnson. I was born in Hamburg, better known as Towson Street. I later moved to Holland after living in Holland for 4 years, and then I was moved to Phyllis Gone.
I'm Frida Rogers Bird. I was born in Spartanburg, South Carolina, March of 1950, to the union of Gardner and Effie Rogers.
5 of us children born to this union, and May Ruth, Annie Mae, and Elizabeth, myself, and my brother. He was the only boy, Gardner Rogers Jr. And of course, we lived on Evan Street, right behind the stadium, football stadium at Wofford College. And the whole area, the neighborhood was called Abbott College. A lot of us knew each other. We knew who lived in each house down certain streets. And of course, we walked to Cummings Street School.
My name is Albert W. Gray Sr. Now it's called because I have a junior. Originally, I was born in a little town called Cashville, South Carolina. I was raised by my grandparents. They were named Luther Gray and Neva Gray. We moved from Cashville when I was 6 years old, and we settled in Highland. And Highland was kind of like the Harlem of the future. It was like a Stravers Road. Everybody was on the way up.
My name is Emily Hill Monroe. I was born June 11th, 1954. My parents' name was Willie Joe Hill and Otis Hill, and I was raised back of the college. We were very fortunate to be raised back of college. It was just like a family back there. On Sunday, we went to, our church was Mount Zion, and I went to church with one of my favorite friends, Cynthia Reed, and Frida Rogers Bird was our piano player.
My name is Waddell Land III. I was born on 424 Erie Street, which is better known as back at the college. We lived in a house that was me, my father, Waddell Land Jr., my mother, Margie Land, my sister, Jackie, my sister, Carol, my brother, Reginald, and my brother, Richard, and my grandmother, Anna Lane. We stayed in a 3-bedroom house, no heat. We had a gas stove, but we couldn't hardly afford no gas for it. So we normally cooked on a coal stove from Grandma did, and we played down at the local park. TK Gregg Center was around there. I lived back there, till I was 10 years old. And then we moved to Toll Potwell, to call it Project. Man, when I tell you, we got over there, they had a bathtub, heat, and running water. First thing I asked my Daddy, why we ain't been moved over here? It was like we done moved on up to the east side. And oh my goodness. We weren't even used to the heat, because we had to sleep in the cold. So when they turned the heat on, we had to turn the heat down. We'd be in that sweat, And then we would walk over to Highland, to the swimming pool, get in there. Didn't know how to swim, but once you get in the water, you just watch everybody, and then, you'll figure it out. And the thing about that swimming pool in Highland, it was an Olympic size swimming pool. We had 2 diving boards. Had a big diving board and a small diving board. And what is unbelievable about it, we had some black kids over there, which I done seen, watching Olympic swimmers now. Those kids were doing that stuff in Highland. The flips, 1.5, the swan dives, and I'm wondering, how did they learn that? Who taught them this?
My name is Brenda Black Morrison. I was born July 1954 in Spartanburg County. I grew up in a small community called Glen Springs. I stayed there until I was approximately 4 years old, and then I moved to Draper Line. After that, I moved to Highland Community in the city of Spartanburg. My parents were Emmalou and Costello Black, and I have 4 siblings. There are 4 of us total. Peggy, Lula, Estella, and myself, Brenda. My mother was a maid for a prominent family in the city, and my father was a local truck driver. But my years in Highland were just wonderful. The hub of the Highland community was the Bethlehem Center. We were fortunate to grow up in Highland because they had a swimming pool, tennis court, a beautiful park. So everything we needed was right there in our local community.
My name is Carletta Earl Glenn. I was born in 1954 in a small community called Hamburg, over on the west side. But growing up, everybody knew everybody. Everybody's parents was everybody's. So anytime we didn't have anything to eat, we always ate at a neighbor. It was always one neighbor that cooked every day. We didn't wear shoes in the summertime. We went barefooted. Shoes, we had 2 pair of shoes. We had a pair of Easter shoes, school year shoes, and a pair of hush puppies that we wore to school. My childhood was so inspiring because we didn't have problems in our neighborhood, because my neighborhood and most of the neighborhoods was predominantly Black. So we didn't venture out into the white neighborhoods. We didn't go to school with white kids. We all went to school in Black neighborhoods, and we always walked over in that whole area.
My name is Juanita Williams Cross. I was born in Spartanburg, South Carolina in 1953. I was raised in Highland. My parents were Curtis and Savannah Williams. I have 7 brothers and 1 sister. My mother, it was so many, she didn't work, so she stayed home and kept us, raised us. My dad worked outside the house. My childhood was good. I mean, I have no complaints. I had both grandmothers. I didn't have grandfathers, but I did have both grandmothers, and we were just family oriented, a really close family, close-knit family. Matter of fact, the whole neighborhood was close-knit because we helped each other. If one person needed something, they got it. If one parent, if my parents saw a kid doing something wrong, she got him. And that's vice versa. Then you got it again at home. And I went to kindergarten at the Bethlehem Center, which is in Highland. We didn't go on the other side of town that much. You know, we had everything we needed in Highland. Some of the other kids would come to Highland because we did have a swimming pool. And Highland had a reputation at that time, which we didn't know because to us everything was good. You know, but we didn't know that. We didn't know that we were poor. Because we had everything. I never remember being hungry or dirty or anything like that.
My name is Ron Henderson. I was born in August of '54 in Belton, South Carolina. But my parents lived here in Spartanburg, and they brought me back home to Highland. Highland was a real popular place. It was public housing, and the few things home that most of us went to Macedonia. A couple of my memories about that place was that I remember Fox Abrams, the first Black police officer, coming around the neighborhood, and I think my dad coached his son, so he was pretty friendly to us, and I remember him coming by and showing us the police car and driving us around, and he was like a big figure in my life. And I also remember that they had a thing called the Highland Swimming Pool, and we would go there, and I learned to swim in the Highland Pool. After that, we moved to Liberty Street. I guess you would call that the Black Main Street in Spartanburg. Everything was on there. Everybody would come there, and all the Black-owned businesses were there. That was a place that you could go and you got to see Black people prosper. I remember Kay Woodward riding her bicycle, and I'm riding my tricycle, riding behind her. And then we moved to Woodview. And I went to the first grade. From there, I went to Mary H. Wright I think, but there was a lot of us that lived there. And I think when we looked at how we lived a kind of a fairy tale life. We had woods in the back, and we had ball fields at the end, and we had creeks and ponds. And so I guess when you look at Mayberry and see how Opie lived, I think you see how we lived too. Matter of fact, those were really formative years.
Hi, my name is Archie Elaine Giss. I was born in East Spartanburg. My birthday is September 1954. I grew up in this little area called East Spartanburg, or Tank Line then. But it was an area where they had these gas tanks, and we didn't know any better, so we just living. My mother's name was Isabel Giss. My father's name was Kevin Williams. I was the only daughter, and I had 3 brothers, Robert Giss, Leroy Giss, and Charles Giss. The neighborhood, a lot of the kids down there, we all went to school together. So it was pretty much just out picking blackberries for our family, to make these blackberry pies, and just pretty much being a kid. But East Spartanburg was a very nice neighborhood. All we knew was just growing up being children. That's all we knew how to do, just act. No white people living down there at all, just totally black.
My name is Nathaniel Fowler Jr. I was born in Spartanburg, South Carolina, May the 22nd, 1955. And I was born to the parents of Nathaniel Fowler Sr. and Dorothy Ann Smith Fowler. I went to kindergarten, and Miss Romley, and it's on Liberty Street there, Liberty Street Kindergarten. I was living on Clemmer Street, which is at the very end of Tobe Hartwell Apartments, and they had to reconstruct and tear down that street to build in Carver Junior High School. And therefore we moved from Clemmer Street to Liberty Street, which was living right across the street from Dr. Bull. And he was the only black doctor in the city, and he had the only black clinic. My name is Marcel Fowler Sr. I was born in 1959. I was raised on Liberty Street, and we moved to Amos Street. And I worked at the age of 7 years old in an okra field with my daddy. I made my first dollar when I was 9 years old. I thought I could buy the world with that $1. Cookies was 2 for a penny. Carton of milk was a nickel. A soda was a nickel. It was like heaven. It took a village to raise your kids, because my mom and dad was at work, but everybody on the street watched us while they was at work. And everybody on the street had your mama's phone number, had your daddy's phone number, where they work at. And only thing they had to do was pick up the phone and call. That was the good days. That was the good days. We need more of that today.
My name is Hedda Sullivan Johnson. I was born in 1953 in Lawrence County. I went to Stannis Elementary School.
I'm Doug Jones. I was born May the 2nd, 1952, Spartanburg County, in a little area called Sixby. My parents were Bobby Shelton and Helen Jones. My mother was a single parent, and then my mother later on married John Thompson, and that became my stepfather. And they moved into a little home on a line called Winkle Line. There was Draper Line, there was Nigger Line, there was Smith Line, but all the black people lived on lines, and we all lived in 3-room shotgun shacks. But on 4th of July, we'd all dress up, get new clothes, and our parents would take us to all the lines. But everybody had a party, and all the kids got to play together, during the parties. Because other than that, everybody we lived around was family. And so we grew up pretty poor. Didn't know we were poor because everybody was poor.
My name is Donald Thompson. I was born in Spartanburg County, July the 8th, 1956, to the parents of Helen and John Thompson. I was always going from one cousin's house to the other to eat. Because my father's family, there were 10 of them. And on my mother's side, there's only 3. I loved to go with one of my father's brothers. He would always put me in the car, and He'd ride to Spartanburg City and I'd be in the car and he'd stop and buy me a soda, buy me some chips or something. And I look forward to that. Some people thought we had a lot. I didn't know. I thought we did too, but just the fact that growing up, that's what I thought everybody had, was a little bit of this and a little bit of that. My parents were loving folks, and then the things that they taught me were instilled in me. And plus my brother was always one that would show me things and tell me things in advance, so I kind of had a warning or at least a prerequisite about what's to come. It's a simple life, but I think it's one that I enjoyed, and I won't take anything for it.
So when I look back on the South Side, when I look back on my growing up, when I look back on the years that I spent there, when I look back, I see happiness and I see joy. Now, some people may look at it and say, oh, it was tough, and it was. Some people say we didn't have a lot of things, and we didn't. But a lot of people say what we had, we owned each other in love and in kindness. So that's mostly what growing up on the South Side meant. Now, it was not only relegated to the South Side. I mean, other parts of town did the same thing. It's just that I knew it closer, and I knew it a little more direct by being on the South Side of Spartanburg.
The beginning years in Spartanburg County, I tell you, education back then was so important because blacks were being denied education in so many cities, so many communities, that I felt like it was so important that you had schools that were willing to get those foundational years started. You had schools like Harris Street School, Mary H. Wright, Common Street School, Island Elementary, and also Dean Street School. Great schools that help kids get started in their education. Let them talk about it.
I went to kindergarten at Miss Young's kindergarten on Liberty Street, and it was really expensive, like $1 a week, and that was to pay for the milk and the cookies that we had every day. We had milk and cookies, and if you did something wrong, they put you in a dark room that was supposed to frighten you, but it never frightened me. I stayed in there so much I thought it was my home.
And I attended Church of the Epiphany kindergarten, which was on the south side of Spartanburg. Back then, people didn't have cars, like family cars, to transport, so there were girls down the street that also attended Church of the Epiphany kindergarten on South Liberty Street. So our parents got a taxi that transported us to kindergarten every morning. At that time, my cousin Preston, who also lived with us, because his parents were in New York City, or we were both the same age, so it was time for us to go to school. But he did not want to leave me because we had grown up together. So in order for them to get him to come to New York, he wanted me to go with him. And so for first grade, we both started school in Staten Island, New York.
Now, up the sidewalk from us was Carrier Street School, which is where I went first grade.
Before Mary H. Wright, there was Carrier Street Elementary School.
Carrier Street was 1 block north of Calder.
Carrier Street went from 1st to 6th grade.
I started school at the Carrier Street School because I went there the last year that school existed.
So we got to come back to our side of town and go to Mary H. Wright then.
Mary H. Wright was one of the first schools in South Carolina built to the same specifications as the white schools.
And that was fantastic because at a brand new school, I mean, everything was new. Desk was new. I mean, floor even looked different. Everything looked different. Our own softball field out back.
Mary H. Wright was built out of red brick. The white schools were made out of yellow brick. The black schools out of red brick, so that you could tell well before you ever got to school what type it was.
After I left New York, came back to Spartanburg, I was in 2nd grade and I was at Alexander School on Dean Street. By the time I completed 2nd grade, my mom had married my stepfather, James, I was going into third grade at that time, and Mary H. Wright had opened on the south side. We then got an apartment in Phyllis Owens, and we were one of the first tenants in Phyllis Owens. And we moved into number 1 Phyllis Owens Court, which is right on Collins Avenue. And it was amazing. We loved it. We were so glad that we were able to get an apartment there.
I started school at Mary H. Wright in 1957. And after 6 years, I graduated.
My sister Mary and I played flute for Miss Spann, Jane Spann. And I'm surprised because my sister didn't like red, but we had red flutes and we learned how to play the flutes. Yes, we were 2 years behind, but we ended up on the little session that Jane Spann had to play the flutes in elementary school.
And Miss Jessamine Davenport, my home teacher, she was my favorite teacher. She and my grandmother were really good friends, so that kept me in line. And she would always say, well, you know, James can do his work, but he just keeps talking. But I love Miss Davenport. Miss Davenport was a lady that kind of kept me on the straight and the narrow.
To elementary school and going to Mary Wright was a great experience. Seeing all the different kids and seeing the different activities that we were able to do during that time. When I went there, it was bigger than life. And I think the teachers were bigger than life. And they poured into us, and I think they really cared about us. They weren't just teachers. I think they were mentors. I think they were role models. But one day there was a store right beside the school, which was Deal's Market.
Which was actually like 2 doors up from where we were living.
And we would go in there and buy little candy and stuff. And one day we saw something that was pretty intriguing. We saw a box of matches. And so it cost a penny. So we bought the matches and we went back up to the football field, and we decided to put the stick match, the lights, the poles where the lights were, and lit it. Naturally it caught on fire, and my dad looked out the window and we stomped it out. He gave me a whooping. I didn't cry. I remember walking out of his office, and then I didn't realize there was a class on the stage. And when they started laughing, that's when I started crying. So, you know.
And I left Mary H. Wright, and I went to Southside Elementary School, where I ran track. I was one of the best. Ever did it and got away with it. Then a tragedy happened. This after I moved to Arkwright. We stayed in Arkwright on the Mill Hill. And I was going to Park Hill Elementary School in the 6th grade. And I ran track, and the medals that I got, they got destroyed. The house caught on fire, but we recovered.
I went to TK Grade School for my kindergarten. Michael Robinson was in my kindergarten class. Me and Michael had so much fun in kindergarten. We had a good kindergarten teachers. Miss Nellie Thacker was our kindergarten teacher. We left TK Gregg and went to College Street. We could walk to school. And Mike was living on Charlie Boy Street, and I was living on Scott Street. It wasn't too far. Mike didn't have to ride the bus, and he could walk to school, and I could walk to school.
The first year that I was there, I was in the 2-story building, so I thought it was just really fantastic. And during that year, they built the primary wing onto the school. And so I got to move back down for the first 3 years.
I was 6 years old. We had to ride the bus from Arkwright, rode the school bus owned by Ernest Collins. Ernest Collins was a funeral, but they bused the children from Bryan Height and Arkwright to Cummins Street.
It was just like family. It was just like family at Cummins Street, and our lunches was the bomb. We had the best lunches. We had the best lunches because we had all black cooks.
I remember my first grade teacher, her name was Miss Wheeler, and I did pretty good at that. And for some reason, they thought I might have been kind of smart, so they moved me up, to Miss Pendleton. I didn't do good with that. I got withdrawn, so they moved me back to Miss Wheeler class, and then I guess that now, that's the only two teachers I meet except for Mr. Hay. He was this man, with the strap, the discipline. And I don't know what I was doing or why I did it, but for some reason I wound up in his office with that strap and I got disciplined for it.
I was excited about going to school. My brother took me to my room and put me in there, and my teacher was named Miss Wheeler, Miss A.C. Wheeler. She was a dwarf. I kept looking at this little person. I thought it was just another child in the room. But she was the teacher. She introduced herself as the teacher, and I ran out the room.
Well, when I got in I think it was the 7th grade, my oldest brother, Willie Joe, became a teacher there. And I couldn't do nothing in school wrong then because the teachers would take me to his room and they would tell him that I was being bad. So I tried to be good, but I'd be bad sometimes. But anyway.
One of the things that I was really interested in when I was in elementary school was music. And when I got in maybe the 6th grade at Cumming Street, I was also a member of the Tiger Band at Culver. And they used to drive us over there and we'd go to band practice every afternoon.
Okay, I went to Highland Elementary, still in the same neighborhood, 1st grade. Met my first teacher, Miss Betty Bowman, which I loved her to the day she died. I had some bad teachers I thought in elementary school. Some that my brothers had already told me who was good and who was bad and who you didn't want to the class you hoped not to get in. But the school was in the neighborhood. We could walk. Most of the kids would be walking to school together in the mornings. I only lived at first, when I first went to school, maybe 10 minutes away from the school. Later, we moved, and it was still not far. We still walked. The whole time I was in elementary school, we walked to school.
But I had the same teacher in the 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and 4th grade. Dolores Ham Oliver.
I remember all of my teachers. Miss Rogers was my 1st grade teacher. Miss Brownlee was my 2nd grade teacher. Miss Thomas was my 3rd grade teacher. Miss Dawkins was my 4th grade teacher. Miss Fair was my 5th grade teacher. And Mr. Riley was my 6th grade teacher.
Our principal was Dr. Watson, and I never will forget, he was very particular about the grass. And one day, I was going to take the shortcut home, and I ran across the grass, and I heard somebody hollering, "Little girl, stop!" And when I realized it was him, I wet my pants. And so those are the type of things, you remember traumatic experiences. So
I was president of Highland Elementary School. The first opportunity I had to ride in the parade, it was a homecoming parade for college. And I was so proud. I had a checkerboard red and white skirt with a red vest, and I rode in a convertible.
But most of all, I remember Highland as being a loving environment and had the best teachers in the world. And
so I did my 6 years at Highland Elementary School, and I enjoyed it. I really did. I enjoyed being on the jungle gym, racing with the boys. And then the project started to change. Before I said it was kind of like a driver's road, the teachers moved down. We even had principals living next door to us. All the principals moved out, and everybody started buying houses on the south side, on what was called Calder Avenue. And then it became the driver's road. So now, the projects are becoming a graveyard.
Of course, the school that we went into, Lincoln Public School, had just been built, I believe in 1956, after the Brown versus Board Education Act. There was 2 of everything, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 thirds, 2 fourths, 2 fifths, and 2 sixths. But the school was set up like an H. And the beauty of the school was 6 classes were down one leg of the H. And then the cafeteria and the gym was in the middle. And then high school was on the other side. My first grade teacher was Miss Bunch. Miss Bunch was a great teacher. When she would get up on the board and she was teaching us our alphabets. And if you didn't get it right, Miss Bunch would always come back and she'd work with you for a little while, and then if you couldn't get it, she'd hold your hand out. You'd hold your hand out, and she'd bend your knuckles like that. She'd take this ruler and just wrap your knuckles. And then you miraculously started writing the letters like she'd asked you to.
I began my formal education at Lincoln in 1962. Like my older brother, my first grade teacher was Miss Bunch. I had a problem starting first grade. I was stubborn. And as a child with no kindergarten or preschool, I started that class and Miss Bunch noticed that I had trouble speaking. But she was compassionate and she made it clear to me one day and she told me, don't just take your time and say your words. So I grew out of that through Mrs. Bunch's help.
Our principal was Mr. R.P. Dawkins, and Mr. Dawkins knew everybody in that school. And one of the things, if you got in trouble, Mr. Dawkins would whip you, and then he would get a hold of your parents. And then when you went home, you get a second whip. And he knew, this man knew everybody's parents, because most of our parents went to Lincoln. And if he needed to discipline you, he'd always discipline, but then he would always call or make sure they knew about it. And they loved him so much that they trusted him, that when he said you were acting up, you were acting up.
So as I moved from 6th grade, I started to hear things about that the school was going to close, that we as 6th graders were not going to get the opportunity to go to the high school side, is what we called it. So we were going to be forced to go to Fairfax Junior High School, but it was a white school, and I didn't want to go.
After I left Mary Wright, so I went to Evans Junior High School, which was a big difference because it was an all-white junior high. The Evans Eagles, I remember that. I was one of the few black people that walked those halls, and it was intimidating. It was scary.
My parents just told me I had to go. I had no choice. So going to Fairfax Junior High School, it was turmoil.
The teachers wasn't the same as at Mary Wright.
And I could tell. The teachers just lackadaisical. No one like Miss Bunch, who tried to help you and show you. It'd help you along if you needed help. Nobody tried to help us. Some of my friends would follow behind and getting put out of school. I had the ability. Wasn't any doubt about that, but by the time I got to the 9th grade, I got so sidetracked.
I went out for basketball in the 8th grade, and I did really well, I thought, but I got cut. And the coach told me that the reason why I got cut is because I was 5'3.5", and the rule was you had to be 5'4".
A lot of people didn't realize the great influence of President John F. Kennedy on Black America. He really made an impact on helping the civil rights movement, helping voting rights move forward. He became president in 1960, but he was assassinated in 1963, which was very devastating to America and definitely to the Black community.
Kennedy was a Black people president. That was the closest that we were going to get to a Black president.
And we were very excited. It was wonderful having some young president, having a young, beautiful wife. And so we were all pleased with that.
We were in class, one of the teachers had a television set.
Miss Charlie McCampbell, our principal, came over the loudspeaker.
And they said the President of the United States had just been shot.
Kennedy has been shot in a motorcade in Texas.
I remember him riding in a car with a convertible with the top down.
Class just stopped. for the whole school. The teachers on our hallway were just walking the halls, crying and going on. Students were crying in the classroom. I'm sorry. I didn't realize it affected me that much.
I was upset because I didn't know a whole lot, but I do know that he had done a lot for Black people because I heard my parents and other people and the teachers talked about it. And
that pretty much was it for me. Now my mom, they were more into it because they understood it more.
After the death of President Kennedy, many of the young people felt so disheartened and devastated that it seems that, they just wanted to try to change things or move things along, or people started thinking a little bit differently about the world because they felt that he was the president that was really focused on trying to make some change. And with his death, they thought nothing would happen.
Dr. Martin Luther King was one of the most inspirational figures of the 60s to the community of white, Black. It didn't matter what color you were. He was just a drum major for peace. And that's one of I call him my natural heroes. So I put him up there on a pedestal because of the impact that he had as far as bringing people together of all races. He was just trying to bring civil rights to everybody. So I just want to say he was a great inspiration to me, but in the 1960s, he was a great inspiration to everybody.
And as we went further in the 60s, and of course Martin Luther King came on the scene.
And I did see Dr. King once in my life. He came to NCC to speak during my sophomore year. And we were very, very excited about that. I guess
Martin Luther King was carrying on the civil rights movement. During those times, he was going with, I think, more of Mahatma Gandhi's nonviolence type of resistance.
Then in 65, the Voting Rights Act was passed, which really gave us the opportunity to vote.
When you went to Baton Rouge Theater, you had to go upstairs. We had a side door for Blacks, and we had a front door for whites. And when you go to the movies, you had to sit in the balcony.
And we could eat, and you could see that there were some people that weren't satisfied with it, but the others, they at least pretended to be.
Also, about that time, Black Power was coming along. James Brown was I'm Black and I'm Proud. Malcolm X and Huey Newton and James Baldwin, we were right in the middle of all of that. And that was like the Black man's finally getting a voice.
Thinking about it and seeing it on TV sometimes when Martin Luther King was marching with all those people and the white cops would be out there spraying them down with water hose, putting sickening dogs on and stuff like that. That made a lot of Black people angry, and that turned Black people into military. We weren't born that way, but when you get treated so bad, so long, you didn't have to fight back.
Happen, and he knew that it would happen because if it happened, there were newsmen taking pictures, and these pictures were going all over the world. So countries that the United States were dealing with, were appalled at the way we were, Blacks were treated.
That was an area of time where, we started changing our hair, we started changing the way we looked. We were proud of our Blackness. And, at the time, Martin Luther King was our next great hope, as you could say.
And then Bloody Sunday, it just created a climate of sadness and unrest. A lot of things happened during those years,
And Robert Kennedy was also killed that year. And assassination was not a prominent word until that time.
When Martin Luther King got assassinated, I had a little more insight of life then. I had grown up a little more, so I know a little more about the civil rights movement.
I was setting up food for my dad's social club that came to the house. I went in and I happened to see on TV where Martin Luther King had been killed. That just took all of my attention, because he was the one that was bringing us through some of these changes that we were seeing.
A lot of rioting occurred after he died because people just were so devastated about that loss and was feeling pretty hopeless.
And I don't know, there's something special about Spartanburg. We didn't see all of the negative things that happened in other places. We didn't see all the fighting and the rioting and all that kind of thing. In Spartanburg, we just kind of, knew it was happening, but it wasn't happening to us.
And there was a lot of anger going on in South Carolina. You're so young, only thing you can do is go with the flow. That's all you can do is go with the flow. So that's what I had to do. I had to go with the flow.
And I had the privilege of going to Atlanta to view his remains at Ebenezer Baptist Church. And it just was so quiet and so hush situation.
You kill a man, but you couldn't kill the movement. And I think that's what his thing was. And they did not kill the movement, and thank God they didn't.
The Carver years. All I want to say is that I've always heard about the greatness of the Tigers, those Carver Tigers. My wife wanted to be a Carver Tiger, and she finally ended up being a Carver Tiger. It was a great story, and I heard so many great stories about the unity and the powerfulness of the great teachers and the principals at Carver. Those were the years that was, to me, that was so impressive to students, and that's what made them want to go to higher education, made them want to be someone that was influential in the city of Spartanburg. So it's like you have to have that continuity, that unity of the teachers, unity of the students, that Tiger spirit, that great garnet and gray. Yeah.
Now I was graduating from chemistry. I went from the first grade through the 9th grade. Now the change come where I'm going to high school.
Going to Carver High School, that was the thing. And everybody on the South Side couldn't wait to go to Carver High School to say that they were Carver High School Tigers. And all we looked forward to doing was playing ball for Carver, being a contributor for Carver, and have your name synonymous with Carver High School.
During my high school years at Carver, we heard about different things that were going on with the civil rights movement, but we were still our own segregated section of the world, so we didn't really know very much about trying to get involved. No one was getting involved at that point.
We were so into it, we didn't realize that the textbooks that we were using were textbooks that they had used at Spartanburg High School, that we got them after they finished with them. And then they were issued new books.
At my time at Carver, we had instructors, teachers, that were very invested in us. I remember our English teacher, Ms. Powell, bringing the entire class in at a 0-hour class. This was before school, because she was concerned about our use of language.
When I was at Carver, they decided they wanted to charge me with all the books that I had checked out. I went to the library, found every book except for one. I called home crying. My mom ended up and just told me that my child has returned all these books and she found all these books but one, and I'm not paying for any books. So you better give her her diploma.
Going to Carver Junior High to Carver. I graduated from Carver in '68.
I made the band in the 8th grade, and I started as a first trumpet player. I was so proud. I didn't play second, I didn't play third, I played first trumpet. But Mr. Clark, our band director, was a smart man. We were terrible in the 8th grade, but he knew by the time we were seniors, we would be great, and naturally we were.
At that time, my mother always told me that girls in particular should be seen and not heard. So we weren't to do a whole lot of talking. So I didn't talk very much back then.
I was president of the senior class, president of Future Teachers of America, president of the Honor Society, president of the band, voted most likely to succeed. So I was doing pretty good. When I graduated from high school, I was 5'4", and I weighed 140 pounds. So you can tell I was very short. We marched according to height. In our graduation line, I was third in line.
Mr. Woodson was the principal. My homeroom teachers were in the 7th grade was Miss Foster, Miss Orly Foster. In the 8th grade was Miss Puritan. In the 9th grade was Miss Taggart. In the 10th grade, I had two, Miss Gray and Miss Patterson, who later became Miss Alexander. In the 11th grade was Miss Lavinia D. Barstow, who taught us to dance the waltz for the prom. And that's how we had to learn to dance. We met in the gym and she says, you're not gonna go into the gym doing those crazy dances, you're gonna go in there and waltz with the young lady. And she taught us to waltz. And in the 12th grade was Miss Cleveland Carter, who was the girls' basketball coach. So
I worked in the summers at the white schools, and I was able to get a job just to have a little money to buy my clothes and stuff like that. But what I noticed was the difference in their classrooms and the difference in our classrooms, which I had never seen before. And I didn't realize how we were being slighted. The first thing I noticed was that all the books that we had in our school, but they were rebound books, and they were coming from the white schools. And when I went to the white schools, their books had pictures on them. None of our books had any pictures on them because when they wore them out, they rebind them, and then they would send them to our school to use. And the other thing I noticed was the desks that we had in our school were coming from the white schools. That's why they already had Johnny Loves Mary carved in the top of it. We didn't know who Johnny and Mary was because they were coming from the white school. Even the school buses. And I started driving a school bus, I think it was in 1960. I was 15 years old. I drove the same bus that my cousin drove, who was 12 years older than I was, but his bus was new then. But it was 1959, and I started driving it in 67.
And we were so excited because we was going to get to go to Carver.
So I spent my 3 years at Carver Junior High School. I wanted very much to go to Carver Senior High School because I had seen the senior high school play, and I knew people that went to Carver, and it was a very historic school, and I wanted to be a part of it.
My brother was teaching at Carver Junior High when I got there. I felt comfortable. I did become a junior high school cheerleader in the 7th grade. I made the honor roll. I was inducted into the National Honor Society.
All the big football jocks would walk down the center of the hall, and you felt like you had to move to the side and let them by. I remember participating in the student council and the health club, and I think I was the assistant secretary for the sophomore class, and just started to really embrace being in high school.
We had old cheerleader skirts, and we had a sweater, and then we had a C that we sewed the C on the sweater. And that's what we wore. We decided to get new cheerleader uniforms. So we had to sell a world's finest candy in order to raise the money. And I remember one of the cheerleaders, one of the guys she knew, stole the candy out of the locker. And we had to help raise money to get her a uniform.
Got there in the 10th grade, and it was everything I thought it would be. My two brothers graduated from there. They went there. I wanted to go there because they were the Carver High School Tigers. When we would have our Christmas parade, everybody standing on the streets waiting for a Carver High School band to come down. What I look forward to is my senior year, because Carver always had senior trips, and they would always go to Washington, D.C. I loved their class ring. I just loved everything about Carver High School.
I went out for a Metro Red. and I made it. I was the only 10th grader. All the other men seniors, but we only had so many uniforms. But I was looking forward to the next year because I would have been head mistress then.
Wasn't over there about, we maybe been over there about 3 months. We start hearing about we were gonna have to go to Spartan High.
Then a rumor started to spread that this was going to be the last year at Carver High School. We were in history class one day and one of the cheerleaders came in their little outfit and she sat down and the teacher looked at her and told her, "You won't be shaking your little rump like that when you get at Spartan High."
We only wore the uniforms 1 year.
So then it came on, I think the principal came on the speaker and said that it was true that Carver was gonna close and we were gonna have to go to Spartan.
We were at Ugly and we would stomp so loud when Mr. McCracken was talking. We gave him 10 minutes to say what he needed to say. What we wanted to separate it, accept it or not. We didn't care because they took everything from us. When they took our school, it's just forced. We didn't have any say so.
We heard the news about going to Spartan High, and we knew we were gonna be with a bunch of white people that didn't want us there, and we didn't want to be there. I know I didn't be there. I definitely didn't want to be there.
And they was trying to tell us how we gonna catch the bus and how we gonna go out there and all that. And a lot of people was crying, because this was a sentimental thing for us. This is called, we losing our heritage, man. And they about to take us to some unknown territory. We don't know nothing about that place out there.
And in my mind, it was like, okay, now I'm going over here with these white people.
So all through high school, you still have those memories, and you don't forget them. Carver High School, it was something that it's kind of stamped in your mind and in your heart, and you just don't let it go.
But in 1969, just before I graduated, Mr. Paul Dorman, Mr. Gable, who were superintendent of District 6, they came over to Lincoln. They put us all in the cafeteria and they said, guess what? In 1970, we're gonna close Lincoln High School. We're gonna tear the school down. Me and myself and some others said, you're not gonna tear down the school. And of course he ignored us and he just kept on with his speech. And I said, okay, that's fine. He left. Well, that evening, I got a couple of my bus driver friends together and I said, guess we're gonna boycott all the bus drivers. We're not gonna take the kids in and we're gonna do this until they tell us they're not gonna close Lincoln High School. Well, the principal started calling around and some of the parents reported it and said, hey, you know what these guys are doing? They're over here in my yard and they're not driving these kids to school. What's going on? So the principal showed up and he said, listen guys, I know what you're trying to do, but this is not the way to do it. The change is coming. You're gonna have to accept it. And we said, we call him Fest. It was our principal. We said, Fest, we're not accepting this. You're not going out like this. Lincoln's not going out like this. We want another meeting with Mr. Dorman. And he said, okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. You get these kids back to school, I'll arrange a meeting. So he did. Mr. Dorman, come back out. And we sat there in the meeting with him. We said, listen, you're not gonna close our school. That's not gonna happen. He said, oh yeah, we're definitely gonna. He said, but I'll tell you what, we're not gonna tear it down, but we're not gonna close it. So some of the students actually drove their cars down to the exit of the school and blocked the street so he couldn't get out. And so they called the police and made them move. And they told us to stop all this boycotting or whatever we call ourselves doing because it was gonna happen. But we swore that you weren't gonna close Lincoln High School. And so what ultimately happened, because we raised so much hell, they did not tear that school down. And that school existed up until about 4 or 5 years ago, but we had a group of Lincoln alumni who was on them saying, listen, I know you tore our school down, you said you weren't gonna do it, but in this new school, you're gonna have to do something for Lincoln. And so if you go to Fair Forest Middle now, you'll see that on the wall. Fair Forest Middle, some memorabilia of Lincoln High School. And so I graduated 1970 from Lincoln Public School in Fair Forest, South Carolina.
I remember the 70s part when they started urban renewal and they started tearing down all the buildings that we were familiar with. In fact, it was our main street. It was South Liberty Street. Everything was there. You had your soda fountains, you had your cafes, you had your beer joints for the old adults. You know, they even had clubs for adults. And you had your churches. All that was on Liberty Street. Even our church, Mount Wright, was forced to move. And they were supposed to give us a Liberty Street, so they call it. So they gave us Boxdale Boulevard. Nothing like Liberty Street.
In the name of progress, a lot of Black businesses were lost. In fact, there was a whole strip of Black businesses. Remember, Louse's Cafe was a staple on South Liberty Street. The Collins had a motel there on South Liberty Street. He also had a gas station. Charles Atchison had huge taxi companies. And of course, Dr. Bull had the Bull's Clinic. There were a number of churches there, huge churches, and most of them, thank God, the large ones did survive.
I lived on Liberty Street. And most of the time on Liberty Street, when you go to the south was Black neighborhood. When you cross Liberty, and when you go to north, Liberty is mostly white. We had to watch where we walked, what side of the street we walked on. We were getting too close to the white person.
At that time, I was teaching at the elementary school where I had gone. And I taught there for 2 years. And they passed a law saying that the schools had to be integrated. So they weren't going to send any of their people to that school. So they closed the school. I was sent to Jesse Bowling. Little things will come, announcements will come over the intercom that said things like, our grass was nice and pretty. Children didn't walk on it until the others came. So it wasn't easy.
One of the greatest accomplishments in the 70s was at Spartan High School. It's when y'all changed the school colors by coming together and negotiating, and y'all came up with the blue and gold. So I thought I'd honor y'all with the blue and gold today. But I want to say that was a great accomplishment. Yeah, it took a lot of work, a lot of coming together. The blue and gold.
Schools were integrated. Carver was closed as a high school, and it became a junior high school, and all of the senior high school, 10th through 12th grade, went to Spartanburg High School.
I think a lot of times we live in the moment and miss the future. We miss what's coming. And I think I miss what's coming. You start talking about integration. After finishing Evans, I really wanted to go back to Carver.
I never was able to become a part of it because with the integration, they closed Carver Senior High School, and everybody had to merge into Spartanburg High School.
So when we get there, the first thing we see is signs. They got the racial signs all out there. They didn't want us out there, and we didn't want to be out there. You know, they could go home and all this kind of stuff like that. Man, look at y'all got the wrong group of folk. You know what I'm saying? Cause we got the Black Power boys, and so we already knew it was gonna be a problem, right? Some people, you know, they'll turn the other cheek. You know, I know the Bible say turn the other cheek, and means take your coat, give your hat and all that. I understand all that, but I ain't got that for you.
But I did see a lot of fights going on, and you know, They had to break them up, and we weren't used to that because, at Carver and Common Street, we all got along. You might have a little ruckus here and then, but this was totally different.
My English teacher was named Miss Boxdale. Everybody know Miss Boxdale. She was a strong black woman. Let me tell you something. She didn't take no medicine. And I was in her class, she had this white boy in her class. Oh man, he was a smart man. He give Miss Boxdale trouble every day. He disrupted class. She was trying to teach. He doing something. Oh man, but one particular day, he coming in with that smart mouth. I ain't gonna never forget it. Miss Boxdale slammed that book down. Boom. Everybody in the class took her. And what I'm telling you, she read that white boy up one side and down the other. And what I'm telling you, I raised my right hand to the Lord. From that day forward, white boy carrying her books and opening the door for us.
Miss Barksdale, I loved her. She was one of the ones that's gonna tell you the truth. She didn't bite her tongue.
And it actually happened. We had to enter Spartanburg High School. I think I started to lose my identity being a black person into practically an all-white community.
I was scared to death when I stepped off that bus because them white people was looking at us like they was gonna spit on us. And they didn't want us there, but they couldn't control that. They couldn't do anything about that.
I think we all had a rough time getting adjusted. I took French while I was at college. So I took French when I got to the 11th grade. We thought that we were speaking proper, fluent French. And the white students, when they would get up and talk about themselves and stuff, they had visited Paris. We ended up just about went downtown in Spartanburg.
So now, the Black Power Boys, they organized. We had like Mike Stripley, Tyrone Lord, Harry Campbell. And so they coming around to open up the classroom door. Let's go.
We had these boycotts. When I couldn't participate, once I got out of school, I got on the bus because I had to work. Because I had to pay for my cap and gown. I had to pay for my class rent was $44.15.
I was just scared because I said, oh Lord, they gonna fight us. And I didn't want to fight anybody over being there. But I just felt like, Lord, this is not gonna work. They didn't want to sit beside us. They didn't have no choice because it wasn't but a few of us in the class, so they had to sit beside us.
At Carver, we'd have 20 to 30 merit scholars every year. When we got out to the other school, the merit scholars dropped simply because the grading dropped. Not in our students' grading, but how they were grading and why they were graded in such a manner. So a lot of students who had been honor students and they were real good students were frustrated by the fact that they could not get a fair deal or a fair shake in the classroom.
I flunked history. I had one teacher, Miss Taylor, and it just seemed like she didn't want to teach on certain things, and I got frustrated. So I made 69 on my test. I was so disappointed.
So I went on and went on to Spartan High. I also remember doing integration. Spartan High started winning. I think we were 23-3 in basketball that year. The next year, I started for Spartanburg High School.
I had a very hard time being a color guard. I was the first color guards out there. Mr. Gibbs said, you can do it. Go out there, we can show them that we can do this. It was a whole different ball game because they were like a military band with the long skirts and walking like soldiers instead of marching. We were used to marching and flapping our skirts and making the music and dancing. And they had titles like sergeants and all just like the military. And I remember I moved one day and the girl was a sergeant. I guess she got right in front of my face and said, I don't care if a bee gets on your nose, you better not move. And I said, you better get out of my face before I spit in your face.
During that time, I was asked to be the head coach of the swimming team. And the question that came up, and can you believe the question was asked when they says, you know anybody to be coach of the swimming team? I said, that's what I used to run a swimming program in the summertime. I coached the team. And one of the coaches had the audacity to ask me, can you swim? And I said to myself, no, but I understand dog paddling can get you all the way across the pool.
In the 11th grade, everybody was just so happy that Coletta and Cynthia on the cheerleading squad, and that we was happy about that.
Well, I decided since I was a cheerleader at Carver, I went out for the cheerleading team. And I became one of the first black cheerleaders that Spartanburg had. It was 3 blacks, 6 whites.
I would always worry about it. I said, they gonna try to throw them up in the air like they throw them up in the air and drop them. And I said, now if they drop one of them girls, I said, we all gonna be out on that football team fighting. So that's what I always worried about. But
so we done organized into the gym. So, anytime they integrate school, our people had to take the back seat. We had the principals, they become assistants, So therefore we organized in the gym, because the white principals and the black principal down there. So his name was Barton, we call him Cool Breeze. So he comes down there to the gym, over there trying to tell us we need to go back to class and all that. And somebody said, open the door and let that breeze out. So they had 2 groups. They had some representatives from the white folk, and we had our representative. So they done brought to him and say, look here, we done lost our heritage and everything, and y'all gonna keep everything y'all got. That's unacceptable. So we gonna have to change the school colors, mascot, all that. So we gonna have to come, that's how they come up with the school colors they got now, the blue and gold.
We embraced those as far as ensuring that we were represented in holding class offices and making sure that we had class beauties. Our beauty was recognized.
And we knew we would never have a black homecoming. Miss Boxdale talked to us one day in class, and she would tell us, she said, now, you all know you are outnumbered. She said, this is what you're gonna have to do. She said, you have 3 or 4 or 5 black kids running for homecoming. You're gonna have to pick one. Had homecoming and Gloria won. Oh my God, it was something else. Just the fact that we all came together and voted for this one girl. And I hate to say it, but the white people, they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't figure that out. There was more of them. How did we do this?
But what a lot of people don't probably remember or don't know, that I was an escort, so I was like the homecoming king. A lot of people don't remember that. But yeah, I had the story of Gloria Bean at the homecoming when she won. So it was very nice, that we.
When we were doing senior superlatives, I voted for this other young lady, a friend of mine. And I never forget, I got that call at home one night, and they told me we took the senior superlative pictures, and I was excited about that. I played softball till I was 33 years old. That's just how much I loved it.
But the struggle that we had, we just didn't know where we fit in. So a lot of black students didn't participate. I ran track when I was at Carver. I didn't run track at Spartanburg High School. I played basketball when I was at Carver. I didn't play basketball. The only thing that I did that I was fortunate enough was become a cheerleader, Spartanburg High School cheerleader.
I loved school, but when I got to Spar High, yes, I played hooky. I played hooky because I hated it. A bunch of us would play. I got my homework. I never failed anything. I did my work because I was no dummy, and the rest of them either. Like Waddell, Brenda, we were considered good students, but it was hard. I mean, just wanted to get away.
I didn't think we was gonna make it through the 11th grade, but we made it through the 11th grade, and we got to the 12th grade. And I graduated the year 1972 from Spartan High School.
So that's pretty much, that change was good. It was good. I didn't see it right then, but now you see it.
During the 70s, when they got ready to make the change, Sally's High became a middle school. We went to the Lawrence High School,
But I only went that 1 year, but during that time, that's after I left, they was getting ready to, they did the sit-ins and they did the marching and everything because of the changes that the black people wanted for the school too. But I had transferred to Spartanburg High School because my sister was pregnant and she needed someone, and she was sick and she needed someone to come and stay with her. So I went to classes at Spartanburg High School, and because of the units that I had, I only had to go like a half a day. But I wasn't involved in the other thing, but I did graduate from Spartanburg High School in 1972.
Spartan High was the #1 school in the state. It was the largest high school in the state of South Carolina. And so they went off that type of prestige. I think in our graduating class, almost 1,000 kids graduated when I was a senior.
After I finished school, I went on to the military. I enjoyed the military. I got hurt in the military. I got hit with a mortar round and my whole face been reconstructed. I came home to see my mama. My mama took one good look at me. She said, you turn around, you get in that car, and you go back. After it was all said and done, I was happy she did me like that because she couldn't help me. They had all the medicine down there. I went on back, I got straightened up, and I did what I had to do, and I got out the military.
And at that time I knew I was a black man because things were changing and I became like a militant kind of person. And as I was driving the school bus, I noticed the seats on my bus were loose. And when the kids would get on it, they would complain that they would pinch them in the back. And so I told our shop mechanics, he said, nah, don't worry about it. So I gave him a week, he didn't fix it. I got angry, I went out. I kicked every seat back out of that school bus so the kids couldn't ride the bus. And so my principal came, he said, what's going on? I said, the seats are broken. He knew that I tore the seats out of there, but he knew also that I had been complaining about fixing the seats. But the next day he came and fixed them. So then the other driver said, if Doug can do that, I'm gonna do it. So that was rebelling against the system, if you will, for what little power we had.
Upon entering Dorman High School after moving from Fairfield Junior High in 1971, I was already stigmatized with the integration because I had already experienced 3 years of it at the junior high level. The football and basketball teams that I made when I was at the Fairfield Junior High School, a lot of my friends, we couldn't even make the teams. We didn't understand that. But we found out why, because now we're at a bigger level. There are more students there, which means they can't have as many blacks on either of the teams. I was always still studious enough to where I would take the classes and pass the classes that I thought was important. Didn't know if I was going to college, but I did know that I was going to graduate high school. I think we counted up less than 60 kids that were black in my graduating class in 1974. Well, I think it was just a good thing that I did walk across the stage with my high school diploma and ready to move on to the next level.
April 24th, 1974. I was working at Olympian Knitting Mills in Woodruff. And my mother had to take one of my younger sisters to the health department. We all had that's the only place that we could go to get your shots and the immunization and all of that. That's where the black folks went. But and my sister Ada, she was 15 at the time. She stayed home to keep my 2 children, Anthony and Ollie. Anthony, I got a call over the intercom to answer we had a phone on the floor that you could answer calls. And it was my neighbor, Carrie Kelly, and she was frantic. She said, your house is on fire, y'all, you need to come home. I said, do you know what, you seen my children, you know what they, she told me that they were at the neighbor, and got me and my sister together to get home. So we got, if you know anything about Arkwright, when you get into 221 and turning into Arkwright and getting on Millwood Drive, that street, the traffic was full. Finally got to the yard and saying that it had already, we wasn't gone long enough for it to already, in a normal situation, the house be down to the ground. And it was. But I learned that my children and my sister was not at my neighbor's house because I saw him and I said, asked her where was the kids. And she said, I don't know, Melos. And then my brother came in, the fireman came out and was talking to my brother. And he told me that they were. And it took a lot to I was distraught, I know. I was fighting with my brother to get down there to surely that, we could get them. But it was already a log from the loft fell. They were in the bed with her. I had put them in the bed with her. And the loft had hit her and they were up under her and she couldn't get them. And they told us that they died from smoke inhalation. But to say that that was the most traumatic experience for a woman to have to do and live through.
I worked in the cotton mill for 10 years. The man that run the cotton mill pulled up one day in a Rolls Royce. And I told everybody in the smoking booth, cause we was out there smoking, and I told him, I said, that's Mr. Cates. I said, what kind of car is that he driving? And I said, don't ask Mr. Cates what kind of car that was, and they told me don't ask him. I said, well, I'm gonna get fired today, cause I'm getting ready to ask him what kind of car this is. So I asked Mr. Cates, I said, Mr. Cates, what kind of car that is? He said, that's a 1961 Silver Cloud 2 Rolls Royce limousine. I looked him in the eye and said I was gonna get me one of them. And he put a look on his face like, no sir, you would never get one of them, if you understand where I'm coming from. But after all my kids got grown, I went right back to that plan. Now, I got the Rolls Royce. Now, I can look at him, he dead and gone, but I still can look at him and say, hey, I thank him because he gave me the knowledge to do what I had to do, to get what I had to get, because he told me I couldn't have it. And I ain't gonna let you tell me what I can't have. I can have anything I want if I put my mind to it.
Higher education, which means higher learning. That was so impressive to me to hear the stories of all the during those changing times in Spartanburg County. It's like you had to have great teachers that inspired their students to want to go to college. But you know what? Let them tell you their story.
In 1963, I graduated from Livingstone with a BS degree in math and science. Upon graduation, I came back. I had a job offer in North Carolina, but I got drafted. And went down to the draft board and tried to tell her that I had a job in education, but the lady didn't want to hear that. And said that, well, you come August, you're going to be in the Army. So to defy her, I went down and I volunteered for the Navy.
I graduated Carver with the class in 1962. And at that time, I was hoping to be able to go to college. I had applied to a few places and had been accepted. That was always my dream, to try to go to college. And that was my mother's expectation. She was very big on education. We had no money for me to go to college. So I decided that I would go to New Jersey with Aunt Mattie and Uncle Ross, my mother's sister, and try to work there for a year or so and hopefully get back to one of the schools. I was there for almost a year. My grandmother passed, and my Uncle Red, who lives in Durham, North Carolina, my grandfather's brother, he lived right near the campus of North Carolina College. That's what it was at that time. And when he came for the funeral, he told me that if I really wanted to go to school, I could come and live within the campus. So that seemed more reasonable, and we were excited about that. So I graduated there and from NCC. Now it's North Carolina Central University, having gone 2 in HBCU. It was just such a defining moment. And I was the first person in our family to go to college. So that was another motivating factor for me. I then moved to New York City with my best friend there, Betty. We moved to New York. Our plans were to stay about a year just to see what it was like and move back to wherever we were from. And at the time in South Carolina, you were sort of limited too, and that was another thing that sort of sent us to New York. I was a psychology major, and she was a French major, but didn't want to teach. And we both ended up living there all of our work life, basically.
Every year, the seniors would go on a trip to Washington and New York. And so we all look forward to that. Then those teachers, I think, were so patient with us and wanted us to really instate on us about getting your application in for college. And well, at that time, we were not in a financial situation that I could leave high school and go to college. So my uncle and aunt came home from California. They were living in San Diego for my graduation. And she was gonna take me back to California with her. And I did go. I never really adjusted. I still wasn't satisfied. I just felt like I needed to be back at home. So I came back home and applied to Benedict College. And they had reached their quota. They didn't have any more dorm space or anything that year. So then I attended Friendship Junior College in Rock Hill. That was a 2-year degree. And so after that, then I transferred to Benedict College in Columbia for my junior and senior year. That was a wonderful experience. I think even there, the school was much larger. Much larger at that time. And it was an HBCU, which made it even better.
But as I graduated, part of my routine and part of my plan was to go to college. And I think it had to do as much with those teachers as it did with the fact that both of my parents had attended. I picked the easiest subject that I could think of. I became a chemistry major. And as I did so, I had to go somewhere else because I could not go to school in Spartanburg to the best of my ability. There was Wofford College, there was Converse College. Converse was all women, Wofford was all men, but it was also all white. So my choices were limited on places that I could attend. I attended Livingstone because many of people from my school had gone there. Very close friend had gone there. But when I went off to school, I found that the work was somewhat different than high school, but I got into it because I could see possibilities there and wish that I had had others. A chemistry major, I had every intent of being back in Spartanburg. I had thought one about teaching, and I mentioned that earlier. But as I placed applications around, I got no responses. I graduated. I have a degree in chemistry, and I had taken a job in Washington State. And this is where the area of civil rights first impacted me, not because it was so bad, but I drove my family from Spartanburg to Washington State. Along the way, I experienced personal questions in my mind because I saw attractions along the highway. I realized that I didn't know where I could go or not. Now, this is America. Can I go?
I'd gotten scholarships to Fisk, to Clark, to other schools. So I was doing pretty good. And all of a sudden they said, by the way, Wofford is going to desegregate, not integrate, desegregate, meaning one of us can go, which makes no sense. That's a recipe for failure. And all the guys kind of got together and we said, well, somebody's got to start going to these white institutions, but it ain't gonna be me, because I don't want to be first, because the first person's gonna catch holy hell. All of a sudden I get a letter from Wofford saying I've been accepted. What? I enrolled as a freshman, and they trained me, turn the other cheek, don't fight back if you're attacked, all of these good things, right? Wofford is a very good school academically. Did well, I stayed there. I was able to pass my classes. I didn't fail any class my freshman year. Matter of fact, I almost made the dean's list. I had no social life at all. Every Saturday I'd wake up, I'd figure out how much money I had in my pocket, and I'd catch a trailway. And I'd go down to South Carolina State, Orangeburg, or I'd go down to Benedict or Allen or Denmark or wherever that was a black college. And then you go stand outside and wait for girls to come down. Big black Cadillac pulls up. On the front of the black Cadillac, it has United States Senator. The guy said, "Al, look at that." I said, "That's a nice black Cadillac. I wonder who's in there." They said, "Shut up, fool, and just look." I said, "That's Strom Thurmond." They said, "Shh." She gets out of the car. She kisses her daddy, and it wasn't S.M.A. Williams. You got my point? They said, "Oh, he's got a son over in the mail dorm."
Walter Montgomery owned Spot Mills. My mom worked at Spot Mills. She applied for the scholarship. That I got a scholarship to go to Converse College. I had a 4-year scholarship that paid for everything but the books, but paid for my education. One of the staff people decided she didn't like the idea that blacks were coming, and told me, "The only reason your score is low, and the only reason you are here, that's because you have a 4-year scholarship from Spot Mill, and Walter Montgomery is a trustee." And my senior year, I sent all my invitations out, and then they told me after all my invitations were out saying that I could not graduate in 1972. I had to take some extra courses. I took 2 high sociology courses. I got an A+ in one of them and an A- in the other. And I graduated. I was supposed to go in the line in 1972. I went to the graduation and stood outside of Twitchell in the hallway and watched the graduation. In 1973, I went through the line.
My senior year in high school, the guidance counselors were encouraging you to go to historically black universities. And I had been accepted at Howard University in Washington, D.C., but they couldn't come up with the money. And my parents couldn't get a loan because they were too old to get the loan. So about 2 weeks before Converse College opened for the fall, my guidance counselor in high school was able to talk to them and got me accepted. And of course, when I went over there, I thought, here I am going from an all-black high school to an all-white school. Also, I have to recall that the other person who went to Converse when I did, we had been in school together at college. And all of a sudden, here we are, 2 black students and 850 white students. I went over there for the orientation and all of that, and everybody was nice. While I was there, I had a very positive experience, and that might have been because I was a day student.
One thing that happened, I like to talk about basketball a little bit because that's what I loved, basketball. And I ran track too for Spartan, and I enjoyed doing that. It kept me in shape for basketball. Dad always said that the more you train, the better you'll be. You'll be able to beat the other guy if you can outrun him and you can last longer than he can. And so I ran track, but I also got a chance to play in the state all-star game in Columbia with some pretty heavy hitters with Alex English and Larry Cook and people like that playing. Both those played in the pros. They were on the same team. It was 2 standing on the sideline. Well, guess what? Guess who was one of the guys standing on the sideline? Ronnie Henderson. And so I went to the coach, and the coach was from Burns. And I went to him and I said, I believe I should be playing. I think I should be starting. And he told me, he says, man, I could have chosen many other players other than you. You ought to be just glad you're on the team. And all of a sudden, 5 minutes to go in the first half, I heard somebody call my name. I thought they were joking. And they sent me in the game. I think I scored 5 points, and we won a rally to come back. Second half, I started Carolina Coliseum, the best players in the state of South Carolina. And at the end of the game, we won by 2. I scored 19 in the second half, had 24 to lead them. And they talked about the great comeback from the North that beat the South. And I remember standing in front of cameras and cameras are flashing and people are interviewing me, the guy who was on third string, because there wasn't no first or second string, on third string. And matter of fact, because of that, South Carolina State had offered me a half a scholarship. But because of that game, they gave me a full scholarship after that one performance.
Thank God for HBCUs, South Carolina State College, University now. That's where I regained my dignity. That's where I regained my identity. I majored in elementary education with a minor in special education. I joined the Alpha sorority. I was honored to be named as Who's Who among American colleges and universities. Spartanburg District 3 came to South Carolina State College. And so he asked to see the top 5 students in the education department, and I just happened to be one of the top 5, and he offered me a contract that day. However, I did not sign it because my desire was to become employed in the district where I had originally went to school, and that was Spartanburg 7, but I did sign the contract with Spartanburg School District 3. And so that's where my educational career started. I stayed there for 39 years, and during that time, I received quite a few honors there. I was named Spartanburg District 3 Teacher of the Year. So, in all, I can say that regardless of what trials and tribulations that I may have experienced, racism, it helped me to become a better person, and it helped me to really stay focused on accomplishing some of the goals that I have accomplished.
And during the time that we were there, we were given the opportunity to do the very best that we could do. And that was all that was expected of us, to do the very best that we could do. And whether it meant bringing home all A's, which was very rare, or B's and C's, or just as long as you got the knowledge, you knew what was going on.
There are also some others that we did not get a chance to put their higher education into the documentary, but we want to make sure we include them too. Doug Jones went to North Carolina A&T in Greensboro, graduated in 1975. Also, Don Thompson, Limestone College, graduated in 1984, Gaffney. Nate Fowler attended Allen University and graduated in 1977. He went on to grad school at USC and graduated in 1982. Thank you to all the participants in the documentary. I want to say thank you to all the the people at the library that helped us with the archives, people that let us come into their homes. I just want to thank the city of Spartanburg for opening their hearts up. This is a vision that I had by coming to South Carolina, Spartanburg, and letting those people open up and tell me stories about the changing times and what this city went through. And it was just so inspirational to me as someone coming from Dallas who attended all black elementary, all black junior high, all black high school, lived in an all black neighborhood. But understanding that those changing times created some great people. And I got a chance to meet a lot of those great people. And I do want to say, by doing this documentary and opening up to the city opened up to me, what it did, it taught me that now I can say, because of those changing times, this is the Spartanburg I know. I also want to take time out to give a special thanks to my wife for 34 years, your hometown girl, Cynthia Reed Wills, who was given the key to the city by the first African-American mayor and had the city of Spartanburg to declare February 15th, Cynthia Reed Wills Day in the city of Spartanburg. I want to make sure that I give her props because she did a great job. And I want to say, your hometown girl, she brought you another story.